Welcome to Help! I Have Kids. I'm your host, Pam Marshall, a mom of 5 and a pediatric occupational therapist with over 35 years experience. This podcast is designed to equip you with practical tools, insights from experts, and real-life stories. Because at the end of the day, you are the head of your child's care team. Each week, you'll hear from pediatric experts and fellow moms like you that will help build your confidence. They'll offer clarity and empower you to make informed decisions that work for your whole family. Hi, I'm Pam with Help! I Have Kids podcast. This is episode 8. We're talking about ADHD today, and this is part 1. I'm here today with my special guest, Allison Leip. She is a mental health therapist and mom of twin toddlers. Oh, my word.
2.5.
And we're kicking off this series on ADHD. What does it look like in real life? And how can you better support your child with ADHD? I know you, as a mental health therapist, have so many insights for us, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I am a mom of twin toddlers, like you said. I am not from Kentucky, so I've actually done a couple career paths before I became a therapist, including being a high school teacher. So helping families also navigate school and other spaces. I've been an athletic director and a coach.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have become a therapist often out of like my own childhood and my own experiences too, which I feel like allows me to connect to families and kids that we serve. Yeah.
You have a lot of extra talent. So many talents.
I'm an onion. Just peel away the parts.
Well, since you're also a young mom, I get to ask you this is my favorite question to ask. What is the favorite piece of advice that someone offered to you as a mom? What's something you've really appreciated?
I think one of the things I have repeated back to myself over and over and over in the late nights and early mornings, or even in the middle of the day with all the chaos, is that they are not giving you a hard time. They're having a hard time. And just that little cognitive reframe there can sometimes help me take a minute to regulate myself before like I jump into the situation, or can even signal that I need to move myself to a different space for a second before I move forward.
That is really good. So it's kind of like an internal reset.
Yes.
And was that someone special that gave you that little wisdom, or did you read it? Or
I think I read it a long time ago. Yeah, way before I entered motherhood. I think I had read that and came across it. And so even when I was teaching or coaching, like a lot of times when I would see a child becoming dysregulated, I'd be like, okay, this behavior is communication to me and they're having a hard time. So like, how can I meet them where they're at? And that they're not trying to actually give me a hard time.
That's an interesting way of thinking that I think sometimes isn't natural for us as moms, because sometimes we're reactive, like, what are they doing that for? We're just reactive.
Yeah, we have our adult brain bias that I like to call it. So it's like, that doesn't make sense to me. Why are we having this reaction to the situation? And so sometimes it helps just take a step back and remind them, like, they're still learning. There's a lot of things they have to practice first.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm sure you've had to exercise that quite a bit with twin toddlers.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure. So ADHD, it's not just about hyperactivity, because we know there are different types, but some of our listeners, moms, may not really be knowledgeable about the different types, or how it can show up at home. So what are some signs that parents may notice or see in their everyday life that signal, oh, my child may have ADHD?
Yeah. So I think, like you said, a lot of times it's been framed as like a child having a really hard time sitting still and focusing. It can also be like kind of daydreaming, or them having a hard time focusing, remembering things, forgetting things, being in the middle of doing something, moving to another activity. So you have your hyperactivity and impulsivity. And then we also have our inattentiveness.
The inattentive type.
And and then the combo.
Mm-hmm.
So it can look like a lot of different things. And I also, while we talked about this, I wanted to point out that a lot of times ADHD in female children presents very differently. A lot of those things are internalized, so it can make getting a diagnosis for a female child a little bit more challenging because those things might be happening within them, and we might not always get to see the full picture of what is actually happening.
Yeah, that makes sense. And with boys, it seems like we know that it's more prevalent in boys, or at least it appears to be.
It appears to be.
It appears to be, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. And I had a child who had the inattentive type.
Okay.
So he would have no concept of time or moved as slow as a turtle. And even as a high schooler, had a morning routine that took a full hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes, just could not speed up. And, you feel like you're pulling your hair out as a mom of a child with ADHD, both whether you have the inattentive type or the hyperactive type, they're both very, very challenging.
Yeah, it's demanding. It can be exhausting at times.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like a broken record, having to help them practice those skills over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They can create a lot of tension in that parent-child relationship,
yes,
too.
in the family. That kind of leads me to this next question is, as both a professional and a mom, how have you seen ADHD impact rhythms, like family rhythms and routines? Things like even a family choosing to go out to dinner together, or maybe they're trying to sit down and do a family game together or activity together. How do you see that impacting those family times?
Yeah, so I think I wanted to kind of jump off your story a little bit. Routines. So them taking longer than usual, we kind of get distracted in our routine. We're supposed to be doing something else, and then we forget something. Mom has to run ball shoes back to school in order for them to be prepared for practice. So I think that a lot of times it can create increased strain. Things take longer than usual, or sometimes because we kind of anticipate that like my child is going to become dysregulated, maybe we avoid doing some of the things that might actually help improve the parent-child relationship because we're worried about the backfire of like if we're engaging
trying to
in this
avoid
game,
the problem behavior.
Yes, altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think about some of the strategies that fortunately had the OT mom hat and had just the regular mom hat, but being an occupational therapist, we do this thing called backward chaining, and it just means you have a goal in mind. Like, say your goal is that your child would be dressed head to toe independently, right? That's a normal skill that a child should do. And when you think about a child with ADHD, a 7-year-old is so distracted they can't get dressed head to toe sometimes, and it's a struggle to get out the door. So how do you make that happen without screaming at them to make that happen? And, how do you build that independence in some of those routines? But this skill of backward chaining worked great. So if your end goal is to be fully dressed independently, then you start with the child fully dressed. So you start at the bedtime routine of undressing and getting undressed first and getting the clothes in the right place and all of that. Then once that's learned, you start working on that dressing part, but you back it up step by step by step by step. So if you start and get them started and do so much with them, and then they finish it out, and then you slowly back up and they do more and they finish more on their own, and then eventually they can do the whole task kind of by themselves. But just breaking it down for them is really helpful. Sometimes breaking those tasks down in routines.
Yeah. And I think also, I'm sure as an OT, like using visual schedules or like
Yes.
even individual trackers for them with like the broken down steps to get through can be super helpful, especially for younger children. I'm always like, let's make it a visual schedule. Let's
Yes.
put it where they can see it. And I also think autonomy is super important, especially for neurodivergent children, because a lot of times them having that self-confidence of like, no, these are the things that I have to do. And I know that if I follow this, like I can reach completing the task.
Right. Some of it is just the of being done.
Yes.
Getting to
Can
the
I
done
get through
part.
it? Yeah. But the visual schedules and like you said, like breaking down the task into concrete things. So I also always encourage families to practice using declarative statements. And so like this can help redirect too of when you get your shoes on, I'll help you in the car. That way we can almost like reduce a demand too for them while also helping build that other skill.
Yeah, that is a really good one. When they're super, super young, you state the fun thing that they want to do. Like maybe it's, I have your snack, get in the car first, and I have your snack. So they know they have to get their shoes and get in the car to get the snack. And so you kind of lure them there without letting them really know what you're doing. And then as they're older, like you said, using some different tactics to get them to make that transition.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah, transitions are some of the hardest.
And you mentioned snacks. Always like picking up from school or like in transitions, if we can have a snack and hydrate in those moments, a lot of times it's going to help their emotional regulation.
And I was on a journey when my ADHD child was young, and there wasn't as much known or talked about back then about healthy food and healthy choices. I just am blessed with a mom that taught me great things. She taught me, to eat whole, real food. And so we would just have this saying, let's eat food the way God made it, the way it comes natural, not processed. And so a lot of times ADHD children love really vibrant flavors and spicy and hot, and they might be particular about some of their tastes or some of their food choices, but trying to keep it dye-free and sugar-free and as much whole, real food, and having your child be a part of that process, like if you can, having them help make some things and be a part of food prep is good as well, so that they're not just saying, no, I don't like that, or, that they're actually part of some of it and getting to taste it maybe as they cook it or as they prepare it.
Yeah, and I think you can, by involving them in the process, like you said, you're building skills. You're also, a lot of ADHD children are super, they look forward to doing things. Like they look forward to connecting. They're very most times like willing and enthusiastic about doing things that feel fun to them. And I think doing things with their body, with their hands, learning how to cook, like for some kids, that's like, oh yeah, like I want to make my own snack. Show me how to do this. Like, let me do this.
The doing is fun.
Yes. Yeah. And so it can take some of the struggle out of that. Even going to the grocery store, giving them small tasks like, oh, do you think you can go grab X amount of bananas for me? And also, again, going back to the autonomy piece of like, that helps them feel good about themselves.
Right. I was going to say that. What are the strategies? Because I recognize that as a mom. I'm sure many of our listening moms right now realize, and I might cry talking about this, but it's so hard for our ADHD kids. They hear so many negative things all day long. And, sometimes it does come from us. We don't mean it to, but it's so hard. Like we might be saying, stop that, do this, get over here, now do this, and it's just, they're bombarded with a lot of negative things. And I know when we had our child diagnosed, I believe he was maybe 9 at that time, around that age, 9, 10. And he had a wonderful psychologist work with him. And he said, he's such a beautiful soul. If you as parents, if your main job can be just to not let other people wreck him. like just keep from other people's voices wrecking him on the inside. And sorry, I'm getting emotional here, but I remember it was such a beautiful thing for a parent to hear, because then I took on that role of, it's my job to help encourage him, to help him feel good, about the things he can do and the things he's doing right. And it really woke me up to that. And, I'd love to hear more ways or things that you help your parents find to encourage children. So what are some of those strategies and things that parents can do?
So I think even being intentional about setting up ways for your children to have wins so that you can catch them doing something like a skill well. And I think some of that engaging in things that they're interested in so that you can see that enthusiastic side of them or the really passionate, creative side of them. But I think even, again, like smaller tasks, the catch them doing good, focus on their strengths. And so things like with the routines. I know that some clinicians probably encourage use of reward charts. I think we have to be cautious about like how much we're using them, what we're using as rewards. But I do think like even as adults, we kind of reward ourselves for the week. Sometimes I'm like, if I can make it to Friday, I might get myself a Starbucks at the end of the week. So sometimes we as adults naturally do this to kind of motivate us to get through things.
Motivate ourselves, right?
Yeah. And so I think for children, like helping them find whether that's connection of let's get through your homework and then we'll have 20 minutes of time to spend together and really rewarding them with like quality time, but trying to find ways where like your child feels confident in themselves with whatever that looks like. And like you said, I think there was a study done, and from this study there were estimates of between, I think it was just elementary school, which is about 5 years. It was over 20,000 negative interactions or comments made.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It really is a lot.
Yeah.
They hear a lot of negative. They're bombarded with a lot of negative things. So I think your mom role when you do have a child with ADHD is learning the skill of how can I build my child up? Not fake or fluff words, but actual real things. Like when you notice they do get their dirty clothes in the hamper or in the right spot, you really are able to say, hey, thanks. Great job. You got your clothes exactly where they needed to go.
Yeah.
And just notice when they do those right things, because there's so many things they're not doing. And sometimes we have to understand the balance between they need the responsibility of learning those tasks and not letting them off the hook with them. But it can feel like we're just saying, you didn't do this. You didn't do that. You didn't.
I need you to hurry.
I need you to hurry. I need you to get in the car. I need you to whatever. And be so conscientious about setting their environment up and their world up so that they can be successful in some of these things and gain that independence. I think hobbies are so important too. Finding out our little guy at age 5 started asking to play the violin, and the violin is an incredibly difficult instrument. And I didn't know he had ADHD at the time. I mean, I knew there were things about him that were different, and I was suspecting it. But he's so bright and smart that it really didn't show up till that fourth grade, fourth grade, when we really started having, or he started having problems. But having that instrument, little did I know what that would do in his life. So I think all children have something that even if, at the time we didn't have a budget. Yeah. We didn't have extra money to start violin, or it's an expensive, to do music lessons and buy a violin. But, there was a way. And things started to happen, and someone gave him a violin. And then we had a friend that was a teacher that just decided to teach him, and just all these things fell into place. And now, want to hear a cool story?
I do want to hear a cool story.
So any moms that are listening, there's hope. Our ADHD child is a professional musician in New York City, of all places, living and making it there. So great. And actually, he wrote and produced our jingle for our company.
Wow.
And it is a really fun, beautiful little jingle, and you'll have to listen to it sometime. But he is a successful musician in New York City.
Yeah. So I don't think we chatted about this before, but when children get a diagnosis, a lot of times parents ask me, like, how much should we talk about it? Do we make this a norm? I think a lot of parents worry when we get a diagnosis, like, will they say that? Like, I have ADHD, I can't do that.
Right.
So I think how we introduce this idea of, like, sometimes there are differences in our brain, and those differences make certain things more challenging for us to do, and we have to work really hard at those things. And then there are some things that feel much easier. Like, we have amazing abilities to be having ADHD. And so for your child, like musicians, there are a lot of musicians who have come out, athletes, who are like, yeah, I have ADHD, and this has kind of been the challenging piece of this. But there are incredible people who do have this, that I think children should understand that they still are able to do the things that they enjoy regardless.
And actually, we would use some of that language. We would say, yeah, you have ADHD, but you are a boy first, and a wonderful boy, and it's actually going to be your superpower. We would talk about how it's your superpower, and it is his superpower because he can hyper-focus. Like, it's such a gift that he has. And yes, sometimes that hyper-focus, sometimes it's hard for relationships or other things, around him are challenged. He ebbs and flows in things, but it is a superpower that he has, and he knows it. He can, when children are gifted in a certain way, they can really succeed in that giftedness. So
flourish in like those skills that they find interesting.
Right. And I think talking about it and making that positive is good. Well, what are some practical adjustments mom can make to reduce stress in the home? Like, can you think about some things to reduce stress? Because it's very stressful on the parent. Because, I know how I felt constantly learning and trying to set the environment up and keeping his world simple. The simpler his room could be, the simpler number of pieces of clothing, or the simpler number of shoes and tasks he had to deal with. And the simpler it was, the better the outcome for him. So I was constantly working at that. So what would be some things that kind of reduce that stress in the home?
I think this is going to look so different depending on the family, how many children are involved. Are we a working mom with another working partner? But schedule and routine, if we can stick to like a pretty consistent routine so that children know what to expect. And I think you said reduce demand. Like, if we can take away some of those things or streamline tasks, why not make that less of, the mental load for you and your child? I think also when we talked about visual schedules, if we can create them, or if we can partner with like a professional to create them, I think if we can build autonomy within the child and have them do tasks like modeling first, then checking in with the schedule, and then having them do it independently. And if we start to notice like, oh, I'm noticing this feels a little bit harder, go back and model with them, work it through with them again. And I think too, when we talk about space is really important. And so I think if we are creating a space where our child knows, whether that's a calming corner, like a movement space where they can move their body and regulate their body, because like, as an OT, they need to move. And so with children who are hyperactive or impulsive or inattentive, like, we have fidgets or moving your body. Like, I can't sit still, taking breaks. So maybe
wiggle
structuring
seats are good.
or like even structuring routines where we're focusing on the task for 5 to 10 minutes. We take a 5-minute break, setting timers. I really encourage timer use. We can set, if a child has a tablet or you have a phone that they can use, okay, like there's 5 minutes and then we need to move on to the next step.
And I think almost most children, if not all, that have ADHD we really have no timing or rhythmicity. There's nothing. And that is one positive thing about music is if you use a metronome is set on, a beat, a specific beat, and whether it's every 1 second or every half second or whatever it's set on, it's a rhythm. It creates rhythmicity. And that is a really neat thing to get a kid with ADHD. I love using a metronome with those kids. And it just teaches that rhythmicity. And having those, like you said, different places to maybe do homework or, they can stand at the kitchen counter. They don't have to sit. Or as long as the area they're in is clear from clutter, that's the best thing is trying to put as much clutter away as possible. And for a while, I used a therapy ball and a desk, and the desk had nothing on it because I was so busy. I was helping other children, and I put this one on nothing on the desk and just the ball. And sometimes I would come back and he was still just tapping his pencil and there was nothing done on his paper. Yeah. And I'd be like, oh no. But just getting creative with space, like you said, is another strategy. I think that reduces the stress.
Yeah. And I think there is a saying, it's like if you've met one ADHD child, you've met one child. Mm-hmm. So I think that making sure that you get input and buy-in from the child, because I'm going to throw myself under the bus. There's a lot of times I have systems that work for me, but they don't end up working for the rest of my family. So then I have to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, I need to create a buy-in here. Like, what is working for everyone? So there's sometimes it's like just simplifying it where it's like, okay, there's a basket on the stairs. We're going to put all of our downstairs stuff in the basket. And then at the end of the day, we're going to do that together. We're going to take everything back upstairs that you played with. Because I think things can feel chaotic. Like we play with one thing and then we're on to the next thing. And then next thing you know, like your floor is covered with all of the things. Or because organization is another thing that feels really challenging sometimes.
And let's talk about rooms for a minute.
Oh, yes.
Lots of us have different opinions on a child's room and how that should be set up. I know personally, we set it up to be the child's safe space. So it's their space where if they're angry or if they have big emotions, that's where they go. They go not as a punishment, but more as a safe space. Like you can actually be angry here. You can hit your pillow. You can, as long as you're not destroying anything, you can get this anger and aggression out. This is a safe space for you. You can rest. You can listen to music. You can do anything quiet. And we kept toys and sort of rowdy things out of the room. We didn't really have toys in there other than the quiet things you could do, like the little, lava little things or little push button toys that in water, those kind of calming activities and music. And that seemed to really work. It was a good thing because, we want them to get their emotions out, but they can't hijack the family, right? They can't bring everybody else down with them. And we would just say, I know you're not happy right now, and this is really, really frustrating for you, but let's go to your room. You can find something that helps you. And if you need to get all that out there, and then when your body's calm and you feel calm inside, you can come back out and join us in this. I would talk to him like it's not a punishment. This is a positive thing. Yeah. Your room is a positive place to go and be yourself and feel the emotion that you have. So do you have anything to add to that? Like how to set rooms up or space up?
I agree. I think simplifying, creating a safe place, maybe like a cozy corner, if they, like the soft blankets or like a weighted stuffy, or if they like stuffies, where they can squeeze or like get their anger out, punch it. I also think that books, if we can have like a book or even, and I love like the
listening to books are good too. A lot of times moms don't think about that.
I love
you can actually listen to books.
Do you know what those are?
No.
Tony boxes.
Oh.
It's the little characters you put on the box, and they have mindfulness ones that actually can walk you through different mindfulness activities, and they have stories, like different Disney stories, or they have music ones with different songs. And they also have, for like older children, they have information. So like if your child is really into octopus or sea creatures
that's neat.
so like it can be like
that.
informational learning, but there's a big variety, and I think it's a great tool to add to a space like that.
That's helpful to have those resources, and I think we can include some of those as a reference to this podcast. What would you say to moms who really feel isolated and alone in this journey, or maybe they feel judged? Because, when you have a hyperactive, impulsive child, you can feel it when you walk in a room and there might be peers or other moms with children in that space, like a birthday party or something, and people are just kind of looking at you like, oh, here he comes. Or here she comes, or, you can feel it that your child's being judged, or maybe you are. What advice can you offer to moms that are feeling that way?
So I think back to the quote that I said at the beginning of like, they're not giving you a hard time or trying to give everyone else a hard time. They're having a hard time. Like they're probably so enthusiastic that they're out and about and doing things and feeding off of other people's energy, or just really excited. Maybe, again, like emotional dysregulation does happen. We get overstimulated by our environment. But moms themselves, like, you are not your child's behavior.
Say that again. You are
not your child's behavior. And I think that when we are able to surround ourselves with people, and I think it's hard. You go into a social setting where you're not really familiar with people. They don't know your child.
No, they don't.
They don't. Yeah. So I think it's easier said than done to go into a space. I think that creates a lot of vulnerability for moms.
And I think what you're talking about is kind of we're dying to our reputation as a mom. Like, we desire to be great moms, but how good I am is not tied to my child's behavior. That's what you're saying, right? That just because my child's behavior might look poor to the group or the people I'm walking into or in this setting or as compared to other children, it's not a reflection of how good I am as a mom.
Or how good or bad your child is.
The behavior is how good
the
or
behavior.
Because your children are always good. They're always good inside. They just have behavior that's sometimes
that feels challenging. And I think too, like, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable for us to enter spaces and feel like all eyes are on our child or on us. And sometimes just sitting in that discomfort of like, this is going to be hard. Like, I'm going to go to this space and people are going to look at me. They're going to look at my child. But my child also needs this practice. Being out here, being around other people, learning how to interact. And, I think if we think about it as like them being able to practice their skills, I think that can help us change our mind too. Because if we just keep them at home, or if we just stay at home, that doesn't help our support. That doesn't help our level of community. Like,
it's true.
If we need a village, we have to go out into the world.
Yeah, that's really true. And that makes me think of another point is we don't want to let our children off the hook, like meaning just because they have this challenging behavior or, challenges that come with ADHD, we don't want to have that child not do their chores or not go to this birthday party or not be able to, let them off the hook on responsibilities or social things. We want to encourage some of those things. And yes, there might be times we decide, well, this activity maybe isn't the right time or the right thing to do. And so we say no to some of those things. But I think not feeling like you're held hostage, I guess, or having to make inappropriate accommodations for your child. Making the right accommodations, I think.
And I think it comes down to safety. Our job as parents is to keep our child safe. It's not always to make them happy. And so a lot of times, like, by holding them accountable for things or having realistic expectations of like, we're going to try this, we might end up having to leave, and that's okay.
Yeah, that is okay. Well, and I want to encourage the moms listening today is, your child, they will match kind of what your beliefs are, what your kind of the goals that you have for them. And they'll rise to the occasion. I mean, even children with ADHD, they'll rise to the occasion. So you can do it, moms. I know it's challenging. I've walked that road and it feels like some days you just want to pull your hair out, but you can do it. You've been just the one to encourage and to love your child through these challenges. Well, to wrap things up, how can we also help moms hear some encouragement? Like, are there some things that moms need to hear? Like some truths they need to hear?
Yeah. So I think knowing that ADHD kids are often, because they have a harder time with those executive functioning tasks, I think having just more realistic expectations, knowing that there might be a little bit, I guess, to our society, they might come off as a little bit less mature. But knowing that most ADHD kids are become well-adjusted adults with proper supports in place. And I think moms also need to know, like, they are never alone. So I think finding that community where you're going to feel encouraged, where you're going to feel supported, whether that's with professional help, finding other friends or family members who might be able to be like your cheerleader on the sideline, where it's like, hey, check in with me. How are things going? Is there anything that I can do? We all need a village. And this, like, parenting is not meant to be done alone. But when you have a child who does need extra support, that can feel almost even more challenging, because it's like, do I risk the vulnerability of having other people see things and maybe my child not behaving the way that society wants them to behave?
Or suffering the consequences. Like sometimes, when you think about older children that are in high school, sometimes they have to suffer the consequences of their choices and things that they forget, because they forget things all the time. And maybe you don't go bring them lunch, or you don't rescue them with the things that they forgot. They feel the pain of that and walking out some of those challenging things.
And I think having professional support to help you know, like, what is a developmentally appropriate natural consequence to things, and when should I come in, or when do I need to take a step back and kind of let them figure that out on their own.
Yeah, that's great. And there was a tip I wanted to share that worked really great, is when my child got to 9th grade, I thought to myself, okay, not sure yet. I think he might go to college, but not sure. He was talking like he wanted to go to college, but whatever. He was going to move out or go on his senior year. After his senior year, was going to have a next step. So I thought, because I couldn't picture him living alone and doing all the things that need to be done. But, the first step is he was on medication as well, and he was on a controlled substance. So part of that means you had to physically go and get the prescription from the doctor's office every month. And, we used backward chaining and just gave him all the things. Each year he did more tasks and more tasks and more tasks to become, independent. And, he was washing all his own clothing. He was managing his schedule. He was telling us where he had to be and when he had to be, some of those kind of things. We did have to support him through lots of steps of getting to college, all the applications and things like that. But we made him 100% do it. We just helped and gave him support through that. And then his senior year, of course, he had to completely do his medication 100% on his own. He had to go get the script, drop it off at the pharmacy, pick it up, pay for it, all of that. Because I thought, how in the world is he going to move out and be able to make it, if he didn't have that experience? So sometimes it is really hard, because we want to step in and kind of help and not, we know it's painful for them to figure these things out. And sometimes we just want to rescue them, but sometimes they don't need to be rescued.
Yeah. sometimes just sitting with them in that discomfort of like, this is really hard for you. You're not really sure what to do. Or we really didn't get a chance to talk about it, but it can also impact like our social relationships with peers and things like that. And so sometimes just providing that support rather than adding our own advice or input.
Well, there's been a lot we've talked about today, and hopefully moms listening, I want you to feel encouraged and supported. So is there like some hope, something you can leave them? I want to hear what you have to say to moms that might be real hopeful for them to walk away with.
Yes. Just because you may have a child with ADHD does not mean that you're going to have to overhaul your whole entire life, your home. I think just like taking small steps to provide support, get them support through school, build relationships with teachers, with other professionals, just so that you have people in your corner. And like I said, most people, when we like reach adulthood, most people are well-adjusted adults, but it feels really challenging in the moment, the day in and the day out, the reminders, the coming along behind them, and all right, we got to go. Let's go. But I think that when we're able to focus on our child's strengths and realize that like each child is a gift and they have a gift and they're here for a purpose, and trying as hard as you can, like part of this is tied into that so that they can be enthusiastic to that, so that they can be the person that they were created to be.
And you moms, you can do it. I know if I did it, you certainly can do it. So we're cheering you on. But thank you so much, Allison, for
having me.
Help, I Have Kids. Thanks so much for listening to Help, I Have Kids. If you're tuning into this podcast, that means you're a mom who's curious, committed, and ready to learn. And we see you. We'd love for you to join our Help, I Have Kids Facebook community, where moms just like you are connecting, asking questions, and encouraging each other every day. It's a space for real conversations, expert insight, and support from moms who get it, because we're all in this together. And if you know a mom who's feeling unsure or maybe overwhelmed, or just needs to be reminded that she can do it, she can advocate for her child with confidence, share this episode with her. We're building a village here, and we're glad you're a part of it.